The week's main news. International Conference on Security of Journalists in OSCE region. Norwegian government calls on Azerbaijani authorities to comply with international commitments. Norwegian Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs visits Elmar Husseinov's grave. IFEX Freedom of Expression Network meets in Beirut. Additional criminal case launched against human rights defender Vidadi Iskandarov. Baku's Mubarak monument toppled. OSCE member states have an obligation to ensure the security of journalists. If journalists are implementing their professional activity under conditions of personal security, they can provide the information that the population needs. Journalists can be representatives of democracy and freedom, said Audronius Adribalis, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Lithuania, at the conference held in Vilnius on the 7th and 8th of June. Adribalis spoke about journalists who have been killed in the line of duty, including murdered editor-in-chief of Monitor journal Elmar Husseinov in Azerbaijan in 2005. OSCE Media Freedom representative Dunja Mijatovic reported that more than 30 journalists had been murdered in the last 5 years. She also said that this is not the only method used to threaten journalists. Institute for Reporters' Freedom and Safety chairman Emin Husseinov spoke at the conference. He noted that in Azerbaijan, different provocations have been used against journalists during recent years. He added that journalists are being arrested and their reputations destroyed, mentioning the cases of Moza Sakit, Einullah Fatalayev and Agyol Khalil. Without any reference to concrete facts noted in the report, the representative of Azerbaijan's presidential administration, Vugar Aliyev, proclaimed that freedom of speech is being protected in Azerbaijan, and that there are numerous opposition newspapers in which officials and the president are criticized. Aliyev also said that IRFS criticized the Azerbaijani authorities with abandon, and that any claims of physical assault were false. The conference was dedicated to issues of the security of journalists in the OSCE region. Representatives of government organizations of member countries, NGOs, journalists, heads of its international organizations were all there. The situations in the various countries, existing problems in the sector, and concrete incidences were discussed, and different proposals were explored during the conference. At the end, a list of recommendations for OSCE member states was adopted. Media Rights Institute Chairman Rashid Hajili, Press Council Chairman Aflatun Amashov, Human Rights Club Coordinator Rasul Jafarov, employee of OSCE office in Baku Vusal Bebedov, as well as Emin Husseinov and Vugar Aliyev attended the conference from Azerbaijan. Norway values its relationship with Azerbaijan, said Crown Prince Haakon at a press conference yesterday evening, concluding his 2-day visit to Baku. He noted Norway's success in Azerbaijan in the company of Statoil. According to Haakon, Azerbaijan uses its oil resources well. The Crown Prince also discussed issues surrounding the democratization of Azerbaijan with the national leadership. Deputy Norwegian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Espen Barth Eide, commented on the outcome of these discussions. In answer to a question on the human rights situation here, and the fate of the arrested bloggers Bakhtiar Hajiev and Jabbar Savalanlı, he noted that Azerbaijan, as a member of the Council of Europe and OSCE, should implement all of its international human rights obligations. The minister stated recent positive progress, referring to the release from prison of journalist Einullah Fatalayev, with whom Haakon also met. However, he also mentioned that there are unresolved issues that remain in this sphere. When asked whether discussions had included reopening the local unit of the Norwegian Human Rights House in Azerbaijan, the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs said that during the week prior to the visit, the issue had been discussed by the foreign ministers of Norway and Azerbaijan via telephone. Norway hopes that the problem will be resolved. The protection of human rights will not only enrich Azerbaijani society, but will also contribute to the development of our cooperation, said Eide. Yesterday, a Norwegian government delegation, including the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs Espen Barth Eide, visited the grave of murdered editor-in-chief of Monitor journal Almar Husseinoff. The group was in Baku to attend an oil and gas conference. Representatives of local press organizations, recently released journalist and prisoner of conscience Zainullah Fatulayev, Almar Husseinoff's father Sabir Husseinoff, and public representatives accompanied the delegation. Eide said that he supports the journalists who are trying to help further Azerbaijan's integration into the European community. He answered questions from journalists about the restrictions of media freedoms in Azerbaijan and the failure of the criminal justice system to apprehend those responsible for the murder of Almar Husseinoff. Sabir Husseinoff expressed his gratitude to the Norwegian visitors for visiting his son's grave.
Freedom of expression advocates from around the world gathered last week in Beirut, Lebanon, for the 17th IFEX General Meeting and Strategy Conference. The world's largest network of free expression organizations, IFEX has 95 member organizations whose collective mission is to protect freedom of expression. IFEX was founded in 1992 by a group of freedom of expression organizations who wanted to create a coordinated network to better monitor and campaign against violations of freedom of expression around the world. At the conference, IFEX members unanimously agreed to launch an international day to end impunity. It will be held on November 23rd, the anniversary of the Maguindanao massacre in the Philippines, in which 34 journalists were killed. Participants also discussed the Arab Spring revolutions and heard from media representatives and activists from Egypt, Tunisia, and Yemen. Workshops and seminars considered how media law around the world will adapt to cope with the new requirements of new media. Ola Kravstova of the Moscow-based Center for Journalism in Extreme Situations spoke in response to a presentation by the Committee to Protect Journalists on the methodology used to monitor and record the killings of journalists. Institute for Reporters' Freedom and Safety representatives Emin Huseynov and Celia Davies attended the conference. Back in Baku after the conference, chairman of IRFS, Emin Huseynov, said that it had been a hugely inspiring event and that IRFS was more committed than ever to fighting against increasing government restrictions on freedom of expression in Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan has seen a recent clampdown by authorities in the wake of the Arab Spring and the Facebook activism by Azerbaijani youths. Azerbaijani prisons currently hold over 30 media representatives and activists. They are in prison or administrative detention under a patchwork of charges: tax evasion, drug possession, interfering with the election process, draft dodging, and even talking too loudly on the phone. At the strategy conference, IFEX and other IRFS partners, such as Article 19, celebrated the recent release of journalist Zainullah Fatulayev, imprisoned under trumped-up charges for 4 years despite a European Court of Human Rights ruling for his release almost 1 year ago. IRFS and partner organizations discussed the future of freedom of expression in Azerbaijan and how it might be affected by last month's Eurovision victory, which has brought the country into the international spotlight. Huseynov told Objective TV that he was very grateful to IFEX for giving IRFS the opportunity to meet with other regional and international groups to share strategies and establish key partnerships.
Today, at the IRFS Press Center, the brother of jailed human rights defender Vidadi Iskandarov held a press conference to discuss the second criminal case launched against his brother. According to Oktay Iskandarov, Vidadi has been charged under Article 132 of the Criminal Code for battery. Araz Alakbarov, who confronted Vidadi Iskandarov, claimed that Iskandarov assaulted him during the November 2010 parliamentary elections. Oktay Iskandarov alleged that Alakbarov has mental health issues. According to Oktay, the representatives of Goychay District Executive Administration were involved in engineering this incident, demonstrating the levels of official corruption in the country. He emphasized that his brother's lawyers had faced pressures during the investigation, and that as a diabetes sufferer, Vidadi is experiencing serious health problems. He spoke about the measures to be taken and reported that he had met with representatives of the embassies of USA, France and England about the protection of Vidadi Iskandarov's rights. One measure he is considering is to launch a hunger strike. A representative from the Norwegian embassy attended the event. Human rights defender Vidadi Iskandarov was sentenced to 2 months in jail on May 2nd by the Nasimi District Court. He was charged with interfering with the electoral procedures and impeding the work of voting commissions. The Grave Crimes Investigation Department at the General Prosecutor's Office launched a criminal case against him under Articles 159.4.1 and 160.2.1 of the Criminal Code of the Azerbaijani Republic. Baku's monument to former Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak in Hordalan city was knocked down last night on government orders. In its place, a monument to an ancient Egyptian intellectual has been installed. Objective TV's correspondent saw the end of the process today. The park has been closed and under police guard since February, but has now been reopened, and a few people were walking around today. Hosni Mubarak, who resigned from his post as Egypt's president on February 11th in the aftermath of the revolution earlier this year, had been in power for over 30 years. At least 400 people were killed and over 5,000 were injured during the revolution, which began in December 2010. During the revolution in Egypt, construction activities began in the Azerbaijan-Egypt Friendship Park, which was heavily guarded by police. Youth activists had held a few protests in front of the park, demanding the removal of the monument. The Mubarak monument was erected after an agreement was reached between Galubaya city in Egypt and Khirdalan in Azerbaijan. In accordance with the memorandum signed between the two cities, a monument to former President Haydar Aliyev, father of the incumbent President Ilham Aliyev, was erected in Galubaya city, and a monument to Mubarak was erected in the Egypt-Azerbaijan Friendship Park in Khirdalan.